What is up, Sagebrush? Welcome to our weekly message discussion. My name is Eric, and I am here with my good friend, Pastor Andrew, and we are getting ready to help you guys take the concepts from the weekend message and live them out during your week in a meaningful way. Andrew, it's a new week. It feels real good back here. I mean,
it does. We're in
like
the woods.
In the woods here.
I feel like I'm camping today.
That's right. In fact,
Eric is wearing his La Luz Trail shirt.
My La Luz shirt on,
it's
ready
pretty
to
good.
go. So we just really themed it up here. So
we worked on that.
We're actually in the second week of a new series called Are We There Yet? And so, Andrew, do you want to talk a little bit about that series and why we're in the woods here?
Yes. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to our favorite time on Monday at lunch. It's good to have you guys here with us. We started a brand new series called Are We There Yet? And it's a parenting series. And this has been a great one for our whole entire church body because, man, we've been talking about questions that your kids have about the meaning of life and everything else. And this last weekend, we talked about what is it to be a person of character. So it's really good. And it's not only good just for parents, but it's also good for just the questions that all of us wrestle with about the meaning of life and what we're defined as.
Yeah, and so here what we're going to do is go through a couple of the questions from our small group curriculum, and that way you get a chance to participate along with us. If you've been here for a while, you know the drill, but if you're on Facebook, you can go ahead and answer in the comments, and I'll see them right here. If you're with a small group, you can pause that, talk about it with your group, or if you're, in the dorm room or if you're at home, just pause it and ask the person the question next to you. But the whole point is we want to go through these small group questions so we get you an idea of what it looks like to be in a small group. Why is it so important, Andrew, for us to be in a small group?
Well, Eric, I'm so glad that you asked that. In fact, a few years back, I joined a gym, Planet Fitness.
Okay.
You might have noticed.
Yeah.
But no, I joined this gym, right? And I got the membership. Crazy thing happened. When you get a gym membership, it's a little intimidating because it's hard to go to the
especially with
gym.
guys like you walking in there.
Of course, in all my spandex. But no, it's sometimes intimidated in, just going to the gym by yourself. And I'm that type of guy where I have trouble going to the gym alone because obviously I don't know how to use all the equipment or everything else. I'm a runner by nature. So I get this Planet Fitness membership and I never go.
Right.
But then I have this good friend named David, right? And David is about 250 pounds. He's about 6 feet tall. He is like pure muscle. I mean, he looks just like me, Eric. I mean, he's almost the exact same person.
A little taller, though.
A little taller,
okay.
Yes. But he finds out, right, that I have this membership to Planet Fitness, and this guy starts like driving over to my house every week, and he picks me up like 4 times a week and takes me to the gym. And as a result of that, man, I started to get stronger and stronger. Well, small groups are no different. It's almost the exact same thing. Man, if you want to get stronger in your relationship with God, you've got to get some friends who are going to encourage you, who are going to sharpen you, who are going to help you along. And so that's why I believe it's so important to get a new group.
Yeah, and we also, like you talk about, life change happens in small groups. So you can come every weekend and you can learn and everything like that. That's great. But unless you're going to take that next step and really get into a community of people who are going to help hold you accountable, just like Andrew said.
Yeah.
So if you are not a part of a small group and you're interested in becoming a small group, or if you're kind of one of those people that's been watching this for a couple of weeks, you're like, I'm going to get into a small group one day, make today the day. We'll have somebody post a link in the comments where you can sign up for a small group. But like we said, if you're with your small group right now, or if you're watching this later, feel free to hit pause as we ask these questions. So every week we go through some questions. We usually start with an icebreaker. So hit pause and discuss it when you're going through it, or answer on Facebook Live with us here. So here's the icebreaker. In your own words, define character, and what do you think it means to be a person of character? Andrew, what do you think?
All right, for me, this was an easy one because I had this great youth pastor who drilled this into our mind, and he said that character is who you are when no one else is around.
Yep.
And basically what that means is, man, the way that you act when no one else sees you, when you're not on stage or when other people aren't focused on you, that's really just a product of your character. And character usually comes out of our beliefs and our values. So the things that you believe strongly, the things that you value, that's what's going to shape your character. And it really is just the way that we live outside of just kind of our own identity and everything else. It's really who we are when no one else is looking. What do you think, Eric?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you talk about when no one else is looking, that's spot on. And a little insider, we as a staff, we've been going through a leadership development stuff, set of
Yes.
videos. Yeah, and we
Videos
talk
and
a lot
things.
about character. So it's really fresh on our minds here. And I think, just like you said, when nobody's looking, character is kind of that thing that you do even when you don't have to and you don't want to.
Correct.
Right? That reveals, and maybe that's not a definition of character, but that reveals your character. So like my favorite one, and I was just going through this yesterday because I was at the grocery store, is like the cart in the parking lot and deciding whether or not in that moment, like I was in the parking lot and I just finished putting all my groceries into the back of my car.
Yes.
And I looked this way and I couldn't really see the cart thing. And I looked that way and I couldn't really see the cart thing. And, there's that little bit, the little voice in the back that says, just
leave
it go. Just kind of let it float,
Let it
right?
go.
And drive off. And then I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And so I, did the little buggy thing and went around and searched for the cart thing. But that's it. Like, you can't understand how, I'm just so frustrated by how many little things like that
so
lead
small.
to bigger and bigger things in other people's lives. So that was a little soapbox anecdote, I guess, here.
Yes, definitely. And I think the two words that really define this are integrity and consistency, right? When you have integrity and you've integrated all these different parts of your life into one, that's when we see a person that has good character.
Right.
As well as it's that consistency, just like you said, whether it's at Costco and putting all the carts back
Right.
or anywhere else, you've got to be a person who's consistent because, I love what Todd talked about this last weekend. Your kids are always watching to see will dad or will mom be consistent.
Right. And we got a couple of great comments in here, all along the same lines. Becky says, doing the right thing when no one is looking, just as you would when everyone can see you. So that consistency between when you're around people and you're not. Pam says, character is who you are no matter who you're with. The way you carry yourself, other people say, who you are when nobody's watching those are all pieces too. So, a lot of thoughts on character. If you have any other definitions, make sure you put them in. Second question, who do you know that models excellent Christ-like character, and what can you learn from their example as you strive to set an example of Christ-like character to your children and those who are like children to you?
Yes. For me, this is an easy one. We have a lot of great people who work here on our staff at Sagebrush. But one of the guys that I love, he's on my team, is Corey. And Corey's one of our care pastors, Corey Satirn. And he's on, I think, this chat right now.
He might be on. He is right now.
He is right now.
Hi, Corey.
Corey is a guy who is just filled with godly, Christ-like character. And man, what I love about Corey is he's done a great job raising his own children. He has 4 adult daughters.
Okay.
Who are now raising their own family members. And Corey was a guy who always did family devotionals with his kids, both in the morning and then also in the evening after dinner. And man, I had an opportunity just to sit down with Corey even today and just to talk about what he did with family devotionals. I grew up in a family where my mom was a follower of Christ, but my dad didn't become a follower of Christ until later. And so we were always confused about, and I've always been confused as a dad about how do I do good family devotionals?
Right.
I've always prayed for my kids and walked with them. We walk through Bible stories and things, but we don't have real consistent family devotionals. But Corey is a guy who started when they were really young. All the way through high school, he passed on his love for God and had family devotions in the morning and at night as well. And he always made it really fun for his kids.
Yeah.
So man, he's a guy that I look to and say, man, that's a guy with Christ-like character, and way to go, Corey. What about for you?
Yeah, so for me, my wife's late grandmother just passed this year, but she was, to try and say someone models excellent Christ-like character is pretty tough because that is like a high,
That's a high
excellent
standard.
Christ-like character. But as far as, someone that I would say emulated it, it would be her. Her name was Betty, and she was just someone that, like you said, had the part where she would read, she would do devotional. She actually would send our kids stuff in the mail,
That's
so
really cool.
she was like kind of doing the devotional thing long, as the great grandma, long term. But the other thing was just the amount of stories that we got a chance to hear from her on people that she welcomed into her house that didn't have shelter, that she would allow to stay, the people that she would feed, the generosity that she had. So not only from the spiritual side of saying, okay, I'm in the Word and I'm walking with God, but also that practical side that says I'm living it out every day. And it was kind of like it didn't matter who you were, didn't matter what you looked like, didn't matter what you were into, it didn't matter all of the other things that went around. She just genuinely and honestly loved people and would always give them a second chance. And so for me, that's one that sticks out. Now I'm kind of like you were, we're around a lot of people that have excellent Christ-like character, but that's one that sticks out to me for sure. So please go ahead and tell some stories. Let us know if there's anybody in your life that models that kind of Christ-like character in the comments. Okay, so we're going to get into some of the meat of the discussion here. So we're going to open up the Bible. We're going to be in John chapter 8, verses 42 through 46. So you can go ahead and write that down. You can pull it up on an app, anything else like that, and read along with us. Okay, John 8, 42 through 46. Jesus told them, "If God were your Father, you would love me because I have come to you from God. I am not here on my own, but he sent me. Why can't you understand what I'm saying? It's because you can't even hear me. For you are the children of your father, the devil." And that's
Strong statement.
This is good.
Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah. "And you love to do the evil things he does. He was a murderer from the beginning. He has always hated the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, it is consistent with his character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So when I tell the truth, you just naturally don't believe me. Which of you can truthfully accuse me of sin? And since I am telling you the truth, why don't you believe me? Anyone who belongs to God listens gladly to the words of God, but you don't listen because you don't belong to God." Okay, so here's the question. It's
a strong statement, bro.
That felt like a parent sitting down and just, unpacking things.
That was
with
a stinger. Jesus has some good stingers.
He had it, yeah. That was like sit on the bed. I'm going to talk to you right now. Why does God hate lying? How can you help others, especially your children, understand the importance of telling the truth?
Yeah, I think God hates lying because it's completely outside of his nature.
Okay.
God's nature is honest and truthful, and the opposite of that is obviously evil as well as lying. And he says it very plainly here. Jesus spells out that, man, Satan's whole idea in the way that he lives is he's the father of lies.
Yep.
And so when we're honest and we're truthful, we reflect God's good nature. But when we lie, we reflect the evil nature of Satan and the devil. And man, none of us want that. We all want to be honest. We all want to be open. Now, in this story in the Bible, you remember that the people who were talking to Jesus had an agenda.
Right.
They were threatened by him. They didn't like him. They didn't want him as a part of that Messiah. They didn't want his rule and reign on earth. And so, man, they rejected him. And so Jesus has some of the harshest language for them because he wants them to know, man, you're not following me. You're following the ways of this world.
Right.
And so he lays it out. So God hates lying. I hate it when my kids lie. Man, even when they try to be cute or anything else, I can't stand it when they lie. And man, we've got to encourage them to tell the truth all the time. What about for you?
Well, I think for me, when I look at, I think you did a great job of the background of the why God hates lying. You could look at Genesis, you could look at the very first interaction after the first sin. Obviously, there was an act of commission where the Adam and Eve committed a sin. But I would argue that almost as important was like what happened in that interaction, right? They hid, they went away, they almost kind of lied to God in that way as well. And in fact, the serpent was asking, "Hey, almost saying that God was a liar, right? Did he really say?"
He's holding out on you.
He's holding out, right? So that there's a lot of history as to why truthfulness and lying is a big deal to God. As far as practically speaking, so I have two kids. One, they're actually both 8 right now because my 7-year-old just turned 8, and then like 10 more days. Yeah, so it's twin week at our house. Anyway, so with our kids very early on, we made a decision that we were going to try as hard as we can that no matter what they did, if they told the truth, then we were going to make sure that we didn't punish them for telling the truth. Obviously, if there was something that went wrong, we would have to have consequences for that.
Sure.
And then we also separate out the consequences for the actual act and if you're not truthful with us. And so we want them to know that no matter what happens, everything will be better if you just tell the truth. And so that's one way we try to enforce that and encourage that. So if there is a consequence, I'm trying to think of something like, hey, something gets broken and then they lie about it. Well, we would separate out those two consequences and say, you're grounded from whatever because you broke the thing, but you also have this consequence because you lied.
You lied about it.
So they know it's
that both are equally bad.
There's a separate consequence, and that if you would have told the truth, yes, there would have been a consequence, but it wouldn't have been as bad.
Correct.
So, are we always great at not making sure that they're not punished for telling the truth?
Dude, I struggle.
In the moment, it's tough, but that's what we try to do as well. Okay, great. Let's see here. Next question. how can you ensure, is this right? Yep. How can you ensure that you are someone who always speaks the truth and seeks to pass that on to your children, and what steps can you take?
I know for myself, Eric, I have to have places of accountability. I have to have places where people are asking me the hard questions, even as a pastor.
Sure.
Man, because we can get sucked into our two lives being very different.
Right.
I could be a pastor that comes and is smiley in the lobby and I'm happy, and then I can get in the car and just be angry at my children.
Right.
And so I've got to make sure that I've got good people in my life who ask the hard question. Again, I find that in my small group, people keep me accountable. People keep me on the straight and narrow. They're asking me the hard question. And what I love about here at the church is that we have small group components, not just for adults, but in all levels of our kids ministry, as well as in Remix. Man, we've got levels of small group. Sam had a small group leader in Wired named Keith.
Okay.
And Keith would meet with him. Keith would love on him and care for him over the weekend. And man, he just poured into him for all those years that he was even in elementary school. And now that my kids have moved up into Remix, we also have small groups in Remix. And so we're finding that there's some places where they ask hard questions. Now, doesn't always affect their behavior like I'd like it to. And we're working on those ones at home, but we're trying to make sure that, again, they're doing some of the same things that we have, that we've got the accountability space both in our lives and in our children's lives so they make better decisions.
Yeah, I think that's key, is not only that accountability piece, and maybe this is along the same lines, but accountability, but a space where you can be completely honest, right?
Yep.
You don't need to be completely transparent to everybody you see. It's not like when you're getting, wrung out at the store and the cashier says, "How was your day?" You don't have to, go
burst into tears.
It's not like Jim Carrey and Liar Liar, and you just, go through the whole
I had
thing.
the worst day of my life.
You don't have to do that. But to have someone in your life that you can be completely open and honest to, I think reduces your temptation to want to keep things secret, which is what keeps things hidden, which is what leads to more lies and more lies and more lies.
Yep.
I think the other thing for me, and I love everything you say, you kind of always take all the best stuff because you go first.
Yeah.
But
Sorry.
the other thing for me
take the best
is making it a habit, as uncomfortable as it is, almost like working out. You have to exercise this muscle, is to even apologize after the fact and kind of come clean and tell the truth. And so even with my kids, if there's a situation where I might tell a white lie, or it's one of those lies of convenience that all parents know about.
Yeah.
Right? Where's my iPad? Oh, I
don't
know.
I'm not
it's
sure
out of
where it is.
batteries. Right? McDonald's is closed today.
Disneyland burned down.
Right? Yeah. All of those things. Like you want to
that didn't
say
happen.
things that are small to kind of get you through the day with kids. I have to come back, and if I'm tempted and I do one of those things, I have to apologize to them, and I have to tell them the truth, and I have to say that it wasn't right for me to lie and tell them why I lied, because I think that helps them understand what the motivation is behind not being honest, so they know that I struggle with it the same they do, but I want to commit myself to being honest to them. And I mean, for those of you that are parents, you always want your kids to be able to tell you the truth.
Yep.
So that's why, like, even from a protection standpoint, we tell our kids, hey, we don't keep any secrets in our house, because there's all sorts of bad things that can lead to as well. But those are some things that we try to do to make sure that our kids are seeking to have the truth and to speak the truth in their lives as well. Okay, great. Let's see here. Laura says accountability is key. Pam says apologizing to others when we do something wrong, even with your kids. Yeah, it's so hard. Depending on who it is, it can be really hard, but you still have to do the apology. And then also apologizing is huge in helping us build character. All right, next scripture is going to be in 1 Corinthians 13. I would recommend just read the entire chapter, but we're going to focus right here on verse 13. So 1 Corinthians 13:13. 3 things that will last forever: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Now, Andrew, I know you've done a couple of weddings in your day.
Yes,
so this might
I've
be
done
a
a
little
few.
bit familiar. There's probably some sand. You're thinking there's somebody's going to pour
So
2
good.
things or light a candle.
I like the puzzle.
Yeah,
That's
the
the best.
puzzle is
It's my
good.
favorite.
Yeah, or the knot tying thing is always great.
Or the braiding.
Yeah. So why is love the greatest of the attributes listed in this verse? Let us know why you think in the comments too.
I think love is that thing that ties us all together. I mean, you can have all the gifts, you can have all the knowledge, you can have all the best qualities, but man, if you don't have love, you're bankrupt. We're nothing without love. And so I think too that love really is that quality in our character that I want my kids to see. Of all the qualities that my kids can see inside of me, man, I want them to say, man, Dad loved God and Dad loved other people. He had a relationship with God that thrived, where God was important to him. Man, we caught him in times reading the Bible, going to church, trying to do the right thing. And we also caught Dad loving other people when it was sometimes inconvenient, whether it be the homeless man, whether it be the people at church that took my time, whatever it is. I want them to look at me and say, man, my character exudes love.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think when you look at the three together, faith, hope, and love, earlier in the chapter it talks about being like a clanging cymbal or a gong, kind of one of those things that makes noise but doesn't, it's kind of more annoying than anything. It doesn't really do anything for you. I think when you look at those three in isolation, faith, hope, and love, you know that elsewhere it says faith without works is dead, right? So if you don't show your faith in love, then what are you really doing that for? And I think, you can look to, John 3:16 or the example that Jesus gives us. For God so loved the world that he did what? He sent his only son to die for, to actually show his love in action. And so I think that that's what's key for me, is why it's the greatest, is because, if it's not the motivation for the things that you do, then those things are meaningless, right? And then if it's also not the motivation or the core, kind of that bottom of the pyramid, then you're going to be doing things for selfish reasons. Because if you don't have love for others and if you don't have love for God, then the things that you're doing, your faith even, is not going to be genuine for the benefit of someone else.
Correct. And love is so selfless. Love is about getting out of the way, not being about yourself, but really putting the needs of another person before your own. That's what it really truly means to love another person, is you got to get outside of yourself and put their interest before yours. Yeah,
and I love when you look through it, love is patient, love is kind, it goes through all those things. And you've probably heard and probably given sermons and messages on that, where you sub out love for other things. And I think that's what's important too, to say like, am I patient? Am I kind? When I'm doing this, does it show patience? When I'm doing this, does it show kindness? Does it hold an account of wrongs? Those are the types of things that I think are very easy and great and practical about the Bible to help you in order to stay into that like greatest attribute that it says will last forever. The greatest of the things that will last forever. So that's why it's so important. Okay, great. Part of living a lifestyle of character is living as Jesus did. What hardships are you facing in your life right now? And how do you think Jesus would have responded? How can you respond similarly and help your children or those like children to you respond well during these times?
Yeah, this past weekend, Todd talked a little bit about that question, what would Jesus do? And it's kind of become, pop culture a little bit, where everybody from athletes to other people all had that same bracelet on. But we lost kind of the significance of what this question really is about. And the question really is all about, man, am I living a life that honors Jesus Christ? I love what 1 John chapter 2, verse 6 says, whoever claims to live in Christ must walk as Jesus did. And that should be our character, right? It should reflect, am I living the way that Jesus really lived? And man, if I'm really honest right now, and I looked at my own situation, I'm a little bit fearful of the future.
Sure.
I'm scared both of politics. I'm scared of the coronavirus and what the future might hold. And I think a lot of times when we're uncertain about what might come, we get stressed out, we get a little more angry, we get on, just kind of the edge at all times. And where we need to work is, man, just really asking ourselves, well, how would Jesus really respond to this?
Right.
Well, I know in times when I get out of control, I get a little bit fearful, I get stressed, but I think Jesus would look and say, God is in control. I mean, he was God, so he had an easy time with this, but he knew that God had a plan for everything, and he wanted God's will to be done versus freaking out and wondering and spinning out of control and being filled with anxiety. He had a certain peace about him that I want my kids to also have as well.
Yes.
What about for you?
Yeah, so I look at this, and I love what you brought up about the what would Jesus do bracelets, and I think that in years of ministry and working through people and working through kind of lifelong Christians and Christians who are really into the like acting right, so Jesus doesn't come down and
zap them,
smite us.
Yes.
Or the people that you talk to when you say, hey, you should come to church. They say, I couldn't step foot inside of a church because the place would get struck by lightning or anything like that, right? It's very interesting that I like the way the question is termed. It says, how do you think Jesus would have responded?
Yeah.
Not what would Jesus do? Because I think I can't look through the Bible and go, okay, every temptation, every issue, every problem I have, I know Jesus went through that because he was man as well as God. But at the same time, there's not like a, when this happens, do this, right? It's not prescriptive, but you get a sense from not only that past passage, but that idea of love and say, in a loving way, How can I respond during a hardship?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other piece is that I see a difference in a sense of urgency that Jesus has than I tend to have in situations.
Ooh, that's so good.
Right. So, I think we talked about it a couple weeks ago when they're in the boat with the disciples, storm going on all around. And what's Jesus doing? He's sleeping.
Yeah.
Because he has a different level of urgency, a different stress level. There are different things that are important. We talk about Mary and Martha. He's in their house. He says, hey, this one has done the right thing, has done the thing that they need to do, not worry about all the other things. And I think through how much time, or even like the woman caught in adultery, and he's just sitting there writing in the sand, just waiting while everybody's arguing, right? There's a different level of urgency that I think, how can I calm down and say, okay, like you talked about, during this pandemic, there's regulations, and man, is this the end of the world? No, right? Like
it feels like it.
It feels like it. Yeah. When I get slighted by a retail worker or something like that I feel like I deserve something, or they didn't treat me right, or I didn't get my right order, like, should I be blowing up right now? No. You know what I mean? Like there's different things where you can say, hey, I need to take not only what would Jesus do, how would he respond? He would have a different heavenly view on the sense of urgency, that this interaction is something that I need to be loving in, and I don't need to just think about myself, but I need to think about the others around me as well. Anything else to add to that?
No, I think you got it, dude.
Okay, awesome. So Hebrews 11:6, you can write it down for later. We're not going to read the whole thing, but it is impossible to please God without faith. That's what it says in Hebrews 11:6. Why do you think it is impossible to please God if you do not have faith? And why is the truth so important for you and your children to understand?
Well, I think that faith is something that you got to define it first. And faith is trusting God even when it doesn't make sense. Even when your circumstances aren't right. If you read through Hebrews chapter 11, you'll see a lot of people listed in that passage who trusted God even when it didn't make sense.
Right.
They followed God no matter what it was. And man, I think that faith is so important for our character because, man, our kids need to see that we trust God no matter what. No matter what we face, whether our circumstances get turned upside down, we're still holding tightly to Jesus. And I love that, if you're a Christian and your family has been a Christian over generations, you can always point back to that grandmother or that grandfather that really loved God and really had a relationship that no matter what, they were trusting in God no matter what. And you said, man, they went through the Great Depression, they went through world wars, and yet they came through all of that stronger because they held on to God no matter what. And we always talk about this here at Sagebrush, that we have to have that faith that holds on to God with that white knuckle intensity that says, no matter what comes, I'm going to hold on to Jesus because I know he's holding on to me. And I know that that's the only thing that's certain, even when our whole world gets turned upside down.
Yeah, so good. I think when you look at the idea of faith, and I love that we're talking about parenting, and I would say, a lot of people or parents are married or have a spouse or somebody else. And, when you look at what Scripture says and gives us that example of marriage, right? It's that example of what the relationship is between Christ and the church. And so when you look through here and say, how would you please God? And if I think about that, how would I please my spouse? Do I think that I would please my spouse if I didn't have faith, if I didn't trust her?
Yeah.
Right? So think about everything she says, everything your spouse says to you, and it's not good when there's that hint of doubt. It's not good when they second guess you.
Yes.
It's not good when those things are happening. And so if you take that kind of imperfect example of what it should be like with us and God, I think through and go like, God, are you really going to take care of this? Probably not, because he's such a deadbeat. You know what I mean? Think about the things that you would say, like, you sure you're going to pick that up after work? Okay, probably
Okay.
not. Or do I have to remind you 10 times, God, right? Like, those are the things that I think through and I go, oh, I wouldn't want that to happen either in my relationship.
Yep.
So why would God be pleased with me saying, God, I'm going to give all this to you, and then I'm holding on to it, right? God, I'm going to be faithful to you, and I'm going to listen to you, but then I'm actually doing things on my own.
Correct.
Like, that just doesn't...
So true.
That's not conducive for a great relationship with anyone, let alone with the creator of the universe that knows your name, that numbered the hair on your head before you were, and knit you together in your mother's womb. Like,
so true.
yeah, I think he's like, I know what's going on here. You just chill out there, Eric, okay?
So funny.
Anyway.
I love the story that Todd shared too about the grandfather with the grandson. And his words to his grandson was, hey, just watch, just watch my life. And that's how he set his example for character for his grandson was just, hey, just watch my lifestyle. Right. And then at the end of his life, when he was on hospice, he pulled the grandson close and he asked the question, did you watch?
Right.
all those years, did you watch my character? And I think that that's so important for us. Is I want my kids to say that Dad was filled with faith,
Yeah.
that Dad really walked with God, that he trusted in God no matter what.
Yeah, and that's why I really brought up, my wife's grandmother Betty is like, after
what she had, dude.
as she was coming to the end of her life, and after she passed, it was like, not only did I have stories, but all of my stories were verified by other people that had lived with her entire life, and like that's what I want out of my life is I want people, at my funeral and afterwards to say those things about me. And I think we've talked about this before, but like if you go one generation past when you're gone, let's say 60 to 80 years, even less than that, your whole life is reduced down to one sentence, comma, past the mashed potatoes, right? It's like, oh, remember Grandpa Andrew? Oh man, he sure was funny. Can you pass the mashed potatoes? Yeah. And you just move on,
That's
right?
it.
And so what do you want that one sentence to be in your life?
So true.
And I mean, I would say he was faithful to God to the end, right? He showed love to others unconditionally. You want them to be something that's in line with God's character, I would say.
So true.
So, okay. Moving on, because we're going to get to the last question here. If purity is the unconquerable allegiance to the standards of Christ, then what exactly are the standards of Christ? Are you living up to them? What's going well? What needs improvement? And how can you set an example for others who are watching you, especially your children?
I love that we say unconquerable allegiance to the standard of Christ.
That's so prosy, right?
Oh man, it's so prosy. We have a great writer on staff. Her name is Laura Courtney. She comes up with a lot of these really good questions here. And I would want to say, man, I wish that I could hold to the standards of Christ. Obviously, I struggle at times to hold unwaveringly and to be completely pure with all these different things. But I know that I love my kids more than anything else, Eric. And I want my kids to grow. I want them to thrive. And I want them to have a deep relationship with God. It's really sad for me. I was going through pictures of my kids.
Okay.
Because I'm updating my computer right now. So I had to search through all of my computer pictures over the past 5 years. And it's like, oh man, you think through all the memories and all the different things that you've done with your kids. And I love my kids and I want what's best for them and I want them to love God more than anything else. I think that I am setting that standard pretty high. Obviously, all of us have areas that we can work on, but man, I know that I'm holding unwaveringly to Christ in the midst of my life. What about for you?
Yeah, I think going off what you said there, I would ask yourself the question, first of all, if you're a parent, you obviously have one there. If you are not a parent, think about the people that you influence. They could be, coworkers, it could be friends, it could be other people in your life. But everybody has influence over somebody, and so think about those people that you influence. Would you want them to emulate your life? Is a big question that I would ask. Yeah. And not just like the answers I get from some people are like, oh, I mean, I'm pretty good. I'm better than most people. Yeah. No, not like you're 51% good or 60 or 70% good, but like, are you living a life that is that's something that you want repeated? Do you want someone, that's a great thing about being a parent is within about a year to 3 years, you realize you got a little clone running around.
Correct.
And you get a chance to look and go, oh, is that something that I want repeated in this world or not? And I think a lot of us, especially if you grew up with maybe parents that weren't that great,
correct.
You made a decision, they could have been a substance abuser, they could have, had any number of different issues going on that you put your stake in the ground and says, I'm not going to do that anymore. Why? Because it's like, I'm not living for their standard. I know there's a better standard out there.
Correct.
And I think whether you're a Christian or not, and you're reaching for that standard that God has set and that standard that Christ has set. Yeah. And though we all fall short of that standard, I think just like you said, Andrew, trying to emulate it and at least let people know that you are essentially a pass-through entity for that standard and say, hey, don't follow me because I'm great, right? Why am I loving? Why am I trying to tell the truth? Why am I working at it every single day? Why am I trying to be the same person in private that I am in public? Because I want to be more like Christ. And so I think in that way, you're able to keep pointing. And so that way, when you fall short, one, that transparency is great for your kids, but two, that they know that you're not the one to live up to. So when they find out that you make mistakes, that they're not completely devastated over it.
So true, Eric.
Okay, so what are some next steps for everybody as we go about this day?
Yeah, we always close our small groups off with a takeaway, something to do and an action. And so we want to give you guys some homework as well today. And so our hope is that maybe you take some time to write out 3 qualities that you want to be known for.
Yep.
Write out 3 qualities in your character that you would want to say if they pass the peas or pass the mashed potatoes or anything like that. So identify those 3 things and then maybe pick one of those qualities to grow it. Pick one of those qualities to say, you know what, I'm going to put some effort in making this even better and into developing this, whether it be faith, whether it be love, whether it be honesty, whether it be openness. Pick one quality to work on for a month and tell your small group if you're in a small group. Again, if you're not in a small group, you got to get in one so that we can help hold you accountable for some of these things.
Yeah, I think that's great. I actually worked with somebody that worked on a life plan, and one of the things they tell you to do is write your eulogy.
Yeah.
Write your eulogy. Write what you would want people to say about you when you're dead. And it doesn't matter how old you are. So if you're 20 years old, listen to this. Think about that. Write that eulogy. Write about what the characteristics you want people to talk about. And then just like you said, figure out what are the things you need to do today to be that person then.
Correct.
So if it's like, hey, you know, Eric was always loving to everyone he met and never said a foul word to anyone. Well, then I got to think, what are the 2 or 3 things I need to do this month to make sure that I become that person?
Yeah.
That means not only not saying anything bad about others, but also you kind of have to arrange your thoughts. That way when bad thoughts come up, you're going to make those things different. And then, like you said, when you make it public, when you tell your small group, when you tell somebody that's going to help keep you accountable, it's pretty good because hopefully they'll follow up with you and go, how are you doing on this? And you get a chance to kind of work that way in the iron sharpens iron, kind of path.
That's awesome, dude.
Awesome. So, hey, what we want you to do is if you're not a part of a small group, make sure that you let us know. We would love to get you connected into a small group. You can let us know there. If you have any prayer requests, you can tell us in the comments as well. And then we're going to be continuing our current series this weekend. So make sure that you join us for that. And then one last thing we'll talk about is we do have a marriage virtual conference going on right now because we know, we know that to be good parents, you really have to have a great relationship, either especially with your spouse or with the co-parent of your child. And so it's important that you do that as well. That's one thing that you can work on is your marriage in order to be a better parent. And so we'll put the registration link in the description. I think it's sagebrush.church/marriage. You can find that. That's going to be a virtual conference that we would love to have you sign up for. And then next week, go ahead and bring your kids to our spooktacular drive-through experience here at the Riverside campus if you're in the Albuquerque Metroplex. Anything else for the people, Andrew?
No, I think we're good.
We covered everything. Okay, well, on behalf of Andrew, I'm Eric. We will see you guys next week.